But this wasn't just about Lillian. While they spun a good tale, the company was struggling. They never seemed to have enough cash flow, and if nothing changed soon, they were going to cut some jobs. The idea of her grandparents' legacy floundering tore her heart. And doing a round of layoffs? Her grandfather would roll in his grave. All those jobs are on the line. Which was why she was here. Julian was set to meet his future wife today, and with Lillian off doing whatever the hell she was up to, Holly was left with a choice. Either they confessed that Julian's fiancée didn't want him and called the whole thing off, letting their company collapse even further at the expense of their employees, or they tried to buy some time while they looked for Lillian. John made his view of the decision utterly clear, and Lillian just happened to have a double. I always wanted to be Lillian, right? Obviously, she should have been more careful what she wished for. Lillian would never have left her without a damn good reason, and if there was one person in the world Holly trusted, it was her sister. So today she could pretend and buy Lillian some time to fix this for all of them, if that's what her sister needed. At least, in theory. Sighing, she fished her compact out of her purse and checked the mirror for the 10th time since she'd sat down. Lillian might be her identical twin, but they'd still found ways to differentiate themselves. Today, all that had been erased. Her blonde hair was now expertly curled to mimic Lillian's style, rather than her usual straight locks that brushed her shoulders. Under the table, her feet were squished into sky-high heels she prayed didn't cause her to break an ankle before the day was done. Even the tight cobalt blue dress was far more brilliant than she was used to. She'd walked into the restaurant with a designer bag on her arm and sunglasses shading her blue eyes that were just a slightly different hue than Lillian's. Heads had turned as she'd followed her server through the small patio, ringed by trimmed hedges for privacy. That's one thing I could get used to. For the first time, she wondered if she'd done too good a job escaping her father's notice. In hiding from him, had she hidden from everyone else, too? Now, in her borrowed clothes, there was no sticking to the sidelines and the shadows. Here, she was on display. Lillian would love this. She'd view it as her due. Channel her. Even if she'd never in her life been able to pull off a convincing impression of Lillian, her sister's vibrant personality was just too dissimilar from her own. Now, that all needed to change. Just take it a minute at a time. Get through this brunch and then regroup. Easier said than done. Even with her doing her best not to fidget, her fingers drifted to her necklace. It was a simple gold chain with a letter on it. She had one with an H, and Lillian had one with an L. For today's charade, she had taken her sister's, and it was unsettling to feel the unfamiliar shape. Still, the habit calmed her nerves enough to stay in her seat. Holly had just checked her watch again when the laughter at the table in front of her died. Glancing at the 4 women seated there, she realized they'd all shifted to stare at the door. Curious, Holly glanced in the same direction and cursed her sister all over again. A man strode forward like he'd just stepped out of her naughtiest fantasy. He was tall, walking with an innate confidence she could never mimic. His jet-black suit wrapped around a honed body that made her fingers itch to touch him. Was his body as rock-hard as it appeared? But it was his face that chased all logical thought from her brain.